the game on the line, you can't fold and you can't bend. Y'all be playing it safe and I be going for the win. Remember back when they was doubting on the kid. Now they tuned in cause my game too legit.
Okay, what's going on, world? Welcome back to Forgiven AF podcast. My name is Shawn. I'm the host. You guys know this is a second chance podcast that we use for our mentorship program here out of Mansfield, Texas. We work with at-risk youth in the area that have gotten in trouble for either fighting or drugs or something. So we come alongside and just help them get back on track. And then we just use this podcast, for information and just to kind of get the stuff we're doing out there, and then try to, bring some sort of positive message or information to people that I know they can really use and help. So let me start off real quick. This morning, I got asked to go to this Adams Elementary School and come read a book for Read Across America Day. And I just want to share that because I had a blast with these fifth grade kids, really good kids. You could tell that a lot of them were really thirsty for a man's attention. I don't know if that comes off the way I mean it to, and just a positive male role model to be around because they had so many questions. They were asking so many questions just about life and things that it was way more than just reading a book to them. And then tonight we're taking 13 boys to the Mavericks game to watch the Mavericks play the 76ers. These are the 13 kids that have all stayed programming for the past year or so, doing great things, getting back into school, back on sports teams. And so we like to reward them with little things like basketball games and Topgolf and different stuff like that. So tonight we're going to take them to the game, and hopefully the weather will react all right so that we can still get through, because there's like tornado warnings or something going on tonight. But I'm really excited about our guest today. I met our guest at a lot of these guests that I've had so far, I've met at this Dear Son podcast event that Derek Johns puts on, and it's just an amazing group of men that are all selfless and, have time to put into, even if they don't have time, they're making time to be able to pour into either the next generation of kids that just don't have all the same opportunities, and then also just other men, and just people in general. A lot like this information that so my buddy Nate Cottman, I got him, at that event, I hemmed him up and said, look, man, you got to do my podcast. And I didn't really give him an option, but he was down, and I'm super excited because I feel like this might be the podcast that can really help people get out of ruts. And I know that there's a lot of people that struggle with this main topic, which is loving yourself. But before we get into that, Nate, first of all, thank you for being here. Like, your time is valuable, man. Like, I'm one of your 141,000 followers that actually, is there for your content.
Yeah.
Man, I love everything that you put out, the way you speak, from your voice, your demeanor, the positive energy, the important stuff that you put out. So before we get into it, I just want to encourage you and say thank you for everything that you do. Could you give my listeners just a quick, history of who you are and where you're from?
Yeah, for sure. So first and foremost, thank you so much for the invite as well. It means a lot to me. And I love everything that you're doing in the community with
Thanks,
mentorship and just being a positive male role model. So I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Me on. I'm from Philadelphia. We discovered that we're actually from the same city here recently when I saw you post something about the Eagles.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, what are you, Eagles fan in Dallas? He's like, I'm from Philly. I'm like, me too. So that's pretty cool. From Philly, born and raised. Moved to Dallas when I was 16. And I've been here ever since. I've done a ton of different things. I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is some of the work that I did in the community back between 2011 and 2017 with the homeless, the elderly, and the incarcerated. So that's really my heart. And then also, I have a heart just to impact people's lives. And so you see a lot of that through what I talk about on social media. I'm the guy that has made all the mistakes, right, and learned from them. And now I want to really just impact people's lives in a positive way. And so you see me talk a lot about self-love. You hear me talk a lot about, affirming. So I do a lot with affirmations and different things like that. I talk a lot about the importance of healing, and then most importantly for men, the importance of masculine vulnerability, right? So being a man that's in touch with his emotions, in touch with, his spirituality, in touch with the importance of being a well-balanced and healed man. So that's kind of where we're at with it.
And that's perfect. And that's exactly everything that you just said. What's cool, and I want listeners to know, is what you just said is actually how you actually live your life. Like, it's not like you just say all this stuff on social media and then get out in the streets and act a fool. Like,
100%.
and that's what made me have so much respect for you, is that you actually walk out. Because there's a lot of influencers, man, that a second that camera's off of them, their life is not at all like what they're trying to, put out into the world.
For sure.
So I want to get right to it. You put a post up. This was I don't know if it was probably 2-3 weeks ago. And I read through these, and I don't think that I've ever felt like someone put a piece of content together that could actually, if you would just follow these 8 steps or put effort into these 8 steps, you could literally change your life, and change the trajectory of your life. So when I saw the way you put it together, I was just like, man, I need to get this discussed in a podcast, because this will heal people, you know? Sure. So the post was 8 ways to love yourself, right?
Yes.
So let me pull this up here real quick.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm kind of slow, but let me see. Okay, here we go. 8 ways to love yourself. The first one, and basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to throw out the idea, and then we'll just chew on it for a little bit. Sure. Kind of go back and forth a little bit, different ideas that we both have. And if you guys are at home, I would recommend writing these down, because if you can find a way to, and you don't have to get perfect in each one right away. These are all things that you can slowly work on in each category. So just kind of think of it that way. But I would definitely write it down or go back and re-listen to this, because these things will definitely change your life for the better. And the first one is practicing self-care. You guys know I own a gym, so like I'm a big believer in self-care, not just the fitness levels. But go ahead, chop that up for a second.
Yeah, so I think that self-care is extremely important. I think it's very difficult to love other people adequately if we don't love ourselves adequately, right? And so self-care is one of the ways that we do that, right? So actually taking time for ourselves, taking time to be still, right? I think a huge part of self-care is actually taking time and spending it alone with God, taking time just to be still and to process through thoughts, emotions, feelings, and being intentional about what we consume. So for instance, my friends sometimes, they laugh at me because I don't really drink alcohol like that, right? Maybe 3 or 4 times a year, if that, right? For the same reason I don't drink soda, or I try to stay away from soft drinks, right? So that is a practice of self-care for me. I feel like whatever we drink affects our cells, quicker than what we eat, because it bypasses the digestion process and goes directly to our cells.
I agree.
So I just try to be intentional about that, but also getting adequate sleep. Trying to be conscious of what we eat, taking time to go get massages, and for those that are into fitness a little bit more heavy than I am, right? That's vitally important. But also doing some sort of exercise. Mine is basketball, so I like to play ball. Yeah. So just taking time to really focus on things that are important. And some of that could be reading. Some of that could be spending time with people that we love, right? But just taking time to do things for us.
I love
beneficial.
That. It reminds me of the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
100%.
So if you're not filling your cup, how are you going to pour into others? And it reminds me of a parent, like let's say a mom who's just running nonstop, kids, husband, work, but doesn't ever have any time to like for herself. She's going to hit a wall. And there's a lot, I've seen mothers have breakdowns constantly over that, because they're not ever taking any time for themselves. Right. So I think that is a really big one. I really also like how you said, I love how you were talking about the, like taking time to abide in the Lord, right? Or for me, it's in the Lord, right? Right. Taking time to get alone by yourself and think about what you're thinking about.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And because sometimes for years, I let my thoughts run my life. Like, oh, I thought this. Now act on it, instead of why are you thinking about that? Is that beneficial to you? For sure. Just different little ways like that to try to like concentrate on what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, 100%. A couple of things too. Sometimes, we question and we ask ourselves, when do I have time for self-care? Right? Like I was listening to a guy, do you know a guy by the name of Patrick Bet-David? Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah,
before?
yeah.
Yeah, brilliant businessman and thought leader. And he was on a podcast, and somebody asked him. He talked about how many books he reads. He reads, an insane amount of books a year. And the guy that was interviewing him said, "Yo, your schedule is busier than my schedule. How is it that you have time to, read as much as you read?" And he said, "That's like asking somebody, how do you have time to eat?" Right? Like you make the time to eat every day, regardless of what's going on in your schedule. You make the time to eat because it's important.
Yeah.
Like your body needs to eat. He said same thing for your mind. Your mind has to eat. And that's the way that I look at self-care. Sometimes we can get busy and we tell ourselves, man, I don't have time for self-care, right? But we should treat self-care like eating, right?
Yeah, that's good.
You don't say, oh, I got to make time to eat. Like you do it because you know it's necessary.
Yeah.
And so just as important, if not more important than pouring out, is pouring in.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks ago, I experienced some anxiety for the first time, and I mean, it was visible anxiety, probably for the first time in maybe 10 plus years. I mean, I really don't remember the last time I had to just stop, be still, and kind of sit down, breathe, because I felt like I had a lot of different things going on. And I think sometimes when we're busy, we forget how important it is to take care of ourselves.
That's good.
Right. So I remember after experiencing that, saying, you know what, Nate, you need to pause more, even in the middle of the day, right? Whatever it is. I mean, listen, whatever needs to be done needs to be done. It is what it is, right? But being intentional about taking moments throughout my day to just pause and be still.
That's so good.
I don't care if it's 3 or 4 times a day. Just pause, be still, process through my thoughts, and then keep going. So it's vitally important.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. It kind of runs into this next one too. The next one was, before I go to the next one, your time can be, if you have 5 minutes,
100.
it could be 5 minutes. If you have an hour, it could be an hour. So don't say, oh, I don't have time to spend 2 hours in the Bible today or 2 hours alone. Start off with something small, and just work up from there.
Right.
The second one, which is huge for me because I'm the worst of this, is challenging negative self-talk. So me, as a person, I can make myself, I mean, we've kind of talked about that before we went live today, but let's chop on that one. Challenging negative self-talk.
Yeah, it's easy for us to get in our head. One of the things, and we talked about this a little bit, sometimes it can be easy to focus on the negative and not the positive, right? And when we do that, we do ourselves a disservice, right? There are times where maybe we are pursuing something. I know I've been guilty of this. We're pursuing something and we think of all the ways that it won't work. Like, why is that? Why do we do that, right? Why is that what we're pursuing won't work instead of looking at all the ways that it could or will work, right? Why give our energy to trying to come up with a plan B and C instead of saying, yo, I'm going to double down and figure out a way to make plan A work. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, really auditing our thoughts, I think that's important, right? Taking inventory of the way that we're processing through things, right? Do we look at things from a negative perspective, right? Do we always try to figure out ways that it won't work? Do we always try to figure out ways that we can't succeed? Do we always try to figure out ways that, or think of ways that it'll fail, right? Like, we have to challenge those thoughts, take inventory, audit them, and then from there, replace those with positive, affirming thoughts, right? I can do anything. There's nothing I can't do, right? There's nothing I can't accomplish. There's not a goal that I can't touch. You know what I'm saying? And then really putting together the proper strategy in order to reach that goal. And I think that when we do that, it makes such a huge difference.
That's so good. And I don't think people really understand how bad we are at that, of like the negative self-talk. I mean, I struggle with it so bad. I'm constantly thinking to myself of how every situation is going to go bad, how I'm not good enough for whatever situation, and I allow that thought to stop me from doing stuff. It puts me in a fear state, to where I'm not able to move forward with what I want to do because I've already thought about every reason that could go wrong, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm scared now. Yeah. So that's something that people, I think, can get stuck on.
And I think it's important for us to identify where that comes from, right? Does it come from a track record of failing, right? Does it come from negative words that were spoken over us? Does it come from a consistent inability of following through? Right. And I think identifying what that root is helps us to tackle that root. Right. If it's negative self-talk, right. Or if it's something that came from maybe a parent or a mentor, where someone instilled that negative self-talk or those negative words over us, right. Really combating that, putting ourselves around positive people who affirm us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Putting ourselves around people who think highly of us, putting ourselves around people who have a lot of faith.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying? And not a lot of doubt. I'm at a stage in my life, man, where I don't really want to associate my dreams with people who don't have faith. I don't have time for it. I have too much that I'm trying to accomplish. So I can't put myself around people. It's not that I can't put myself around them, but I can't share dreams with people who don't have the faith for it.
Yeah, because that negative self-talk is going to come out in negative speaking.
100%.
So you don't want to be around someone who's just constantly bringing everyone else down, and that negativity is just
100%. Yeah. I got to be around people that have faith for themselves, and also have the capacity to believe God for what I'm believing God for. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that when you're around people who have faith like you have faith, their words become seeds. But if you're around people that doubt, then their words become seeds.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why those seeds are sprouting up into negative self-talk. It's because those seeds were planted in our brain, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Based upon negative words that are spoken. So I'm putting myself around people who have faith for it.
That's awesome. I really like that, challenging the negative self-talk. This next one, which might seem like not a big deal, but to me it really is, and it's celebrating your accomplishments. Mm-hmm. This is what we definitely talked about beforehand. We both said that we both struggle with, celebrating our accomplishments, because me personally, as soon as I accomplish something, I'm nitpicking that thing of like, man, you could have done this so much better, or you could have added this, or I can't believe you didn't say this. And now I'm feeling bad about something that should be a win. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's trying to find, but I feel like you're kind of in that same, we were kind of saying you're in the same sort of situation with that.
Yeah, for sure. It's so funny. My sister has to make me celebrate my birthday every year. Like it's to that point. And I find that in the past, I have given more energy to the areas that I failed in than I have the areas that I've succeeded in. And there's an imbalance there, right? If all I focus on or all that I give life to are the areas that I failed and not the areas that I've succeeded, right? So one of the things that I'm making it a point to do at this stage in my life is to celebrate every win, whether I deem it to be small or big, right? To celebrate every win and to see it as significant. You know what I'm saying? Every opportunity that I have to do something that God has called me to do and to complete it, right, is something that's worth being celebrated.
Yeah, that's good. Another little piece of advice that I have for that one, for celebrating your accomplishments, is for someone who struggles with that, set yourself some small goals in your life, like small goals that you're actually going to accomplish. Sometimes people set their goals so far ahead that we get caught up in the journey and we might not even reach, and then it's just a total loss, right? As opposed to if we can set small goals along the way to our major accomplishment, that gives us a bunch of small things to celebrate on the way. Celebrating small wins is going to make you feel better about your life. It's going to give you uplifting. So that was a big thing that's always helped me, is instead of just setting a big goal and be like, that's my goal, I'll do that. But then I'll also have small goals on the way there that I can celebrate to keep me motivated and keep me going towards that bigger goal.
Man, that's so good. And that's so important. Yeah, absolutely. Breaking down those larger goals into smaller bite-sized pieces.
Yeah.
And that also builds momentum.
Exactly.
Right? Like
exactly
as you check, different things off that list, it's like, okay, I'm actually pacing towards the thing that I want to do.
That's awesome. This next one's a big one. Might even be the biggest one, because people will get stuck here for the rest of their life, but you got to be able to forgive yourself. Go ahead, take that one.
Yeah, so I'm the guy that's made a bunch of different mistakes, right? I'm the guy that's made many poor decisions, right? And these are things that I've been transparent about in front of the people I love, in front of the world. Even in terms of, having been married before, and making every mistake possible that you can make, in a marriage. Forgiveness of self is also an act of self-care, right? It's hard to move past a stage in our life if we don't practice forgiveness. This goes for other people as well, right? Whatever we don't forgive holds us hostage, right? It's almost like we are time-stamped and stuck in that time frame, right? Until we learn to forgive. And, it's easy for me to forgive other people, but I've struggled in times past when it came to forgiving myself. But I came to a point where I realized that I had to extend the same grace to myself that I gave to other people.
Yeah, that's good.
Right? Like I had to be my first good friend.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I've been a great friend to other people. I feel, I'm quick to forgive other people, but it goes back to that negative self-talk, right? Like there have been times in my life where it was difficult for me to get past some of the things that I've done.
Yeah.
Until I realized that I'm human just like anybody else, right? And I had to take off that cape and say, yo, I deserve the forgiveness that I freely give.
That's good. Because when you're holding resentment towards someone else or towards yourself, it's only hurting you. You know what I mean? Like all we're
100%.
doing is hurting ourselves. Like even if it's against someone else, right? Someone wronged you. That person's living their day, going about their day, no care in the world, and we're over here holding this grudge inside of us that's affecting relationships with other people, how we treat ourselves. So we got to make sure that we're willing to. And it doesn't mean you have to forget about what happened. You can still protect yourself. You know what I mean? But it's just freeing that person of that. Or freeing yourself of your mistakes. I'm in the same boat as you, man. I've made way more mistakes than the average person, you know? But it also ties back into your masculine vulnerability, being able to expose those mistakes and being okay with. One of the best ways for me to have gotten over a lot of the mistakes I've made was being able to share those mistakes with another man, and then that man being able to tell me like, "Hey, man, I know that that's what you went through, but we're okay." So something about sharing your mistakes with someone else has been very freeing for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I believe in the Bible. And there is a verse that says, confess your faults one to another that you might be healed.
Yep.
Right? So there's something about confessing our faults to God that causes us to find forgiveness from God. But there's something about confessing our faults to others that causes us to find healing.
Yep.
And I think that I know that God understood that there was something about getting it off our chest to other people that brings about healing, right? Yeah. We can't heal what we don't reveal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So one of the best things, I said this the other day. I was talking to a friend of mine and I said, whatever we bury will bury us.
That's so good because it's so true.
Right? So whatever secrets we bury or whatever we don't release is going to bury our self-esteem. It's going to bury our perception of ourselves. It's going to bury our confidence. It's going to bury our ability to see ourselves as one that can be effective, right? And depending on how long we hold on to it, it can actually cause major anxiety, stress, and ultimately death, right?
Yeah, it's true.
So for me, I'm at a place in my life where I'm exhibiting abnormal transparency, right? Yeah. Because I know the effect that releasing it can have, on one's overall health, right? I'll give you an example. Last year, I think it was September of last year. So I've been divorced for 2 years. Next month makes 2 years that I've been divorced. September of last year, so September of 2022, I sat down with my ex-wife. I had organized a meeting between my ex-wife and my mentor, and I sat down and confessed everything to her, right? Typically not something that most people do, right?
Yeah.
For obvious reason. But I felt like I had to release that. You know what I'm saying? And I had to look the person in the eye that I had hurt and release that. And it was simultaneously one of the most difficult and one of the most freeing meetings of my entire life.
That would be hard. That would
Very,
be hard.
very difficult. Yeah, most difficult thing. But it was something that I felt God wanted me to do, right? And I know that God can see all sides of everything, right? So he kind of saw the season of my life that I'm in now, and maybe he felt like it was necessary for that. I don't know. But I can tell you that, and I shared with her some things that I had shared with other people already. But it was important. It was vitally important for me to share it with her.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. So I'm not just saying this from a place of like coming up with different ideas. Like this comes from a place of having to walk through some of the most difficult seasons of my life.
That's good, man. That's hard. I have a lot of respect for that. I think that, how do you find the happy medium of like, I need this to free this for myself, but I don't want to hurt her with what I'm going to share her.
Yeah, for sure. So,
and that could go with any relationship, not just an ex-wife, anyone that you've hurt.
Yeah.
At what point do you, hey man, I really want to get this off my chest, but at the same time, I don't want to hurt her further.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it all depends too on your partner, right? Or who that person is, right? I think for me, the most important thing for me was being obedient, right?
Yeah.
And knowing that in that obedience, you know, the hurt and the pain was in the actions, right? Like that's really what caused the hurt and the pain. Revealing it is just casting a light on what was already done. If that makes sense.
That does.
But at the same time, I understand what you're saying. Like, yo, sometimes we feel the need to conceal because we want to protect other people.
Yeah.
Right. But I also feel like a large part of that is us protecting ourselves.
Kind of selfish in a way.
I think some of it is self-preservation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it can be, it's a delicate dance. Here's the deal. If I'm being completely honest, I didn't have that courage in my marriage.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know what I'm saying? I think it's a little bit easier when you don't have to look that person in the face every day.
Yeah. That's definitely true.
Right. Again, I didn't have the courage to do that in my marriage, but I'm at a place in my life where I am exhibiting obnoxious transparency and vulnerability.
I love that, dude.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, it may not be for anybody else other than me.
Yeah. Which is not the case, but I see what you're saying. You have to look at it that way.
Right.
Like
and I feel like that's enough. Right? I think that sometimes what happens is we prioritize other people's peace over our own.
Oh, for sure.
You understand what I'm saying? And so for me, one, it was about being obedient, but then also it was about prioritizing my own peace. You know what I'm saying? And trusting that the same God that gave me the command to say it is the same God that has the capacity to heal her as well of any of the residual damage.
That's good. That's a really good outlook too. That's awesome. All right. The next one is setting healthy boundaries. This is something that, sorry, I'm all tangled up. That's something that I struggle with for sure, setting healthy boundaries. I'll let people that probably shouldn't still be in my life a little bit too close to me sometimes. And that's something that is definitely dangerous. And I'm not even sure if that's exactly what that is going, the direction that's going, but what is the outlook on setting healthy boundaries?
Yeah, I think that a aspect of self-care is understanding people's roles in our lives, right?
Yeah.
And being okay with what those roles are. So I'll give you an example, right? I believe that it's important for us to understand who our safe places are, right? I've had situations in the past where I've shared things with people who didn't have the capacity to handle my truth. Maybe they shared it with people against, my own will.
Yeah.
Maybe they talked about me, criticized me, or whatever the case may be, and so understanding people's roles in our lives are important. I think that's one way that we set boundaries. Another is setting boundaries to ensure that we keep the wrong people out and the right people in.
Yeah.
Right. Boundaries are for protection, right? And for safeguarding and management. And so for me, setting boundaries when it comes to who I talk to, setting boundaries when it comes to who I allow in my personal space, setting boundaries between who's a friend and who's an associate. That one can,
Yeah.
that one can be blurred sometimes, right? Yeah. But understanding, okay, this person is a true friend. This person is maybe somebody else is somebody that I've known for a long time. But that's all it is. I've known them for a long time. We haven't developed that relational equity. So I think all of those things are important.
That's so good. This is a really hard one that I actually really struggle with because I'm a people pleaser, right? I want everybody to like me, and it doesn't matter who the person is. I want them to like me, and therefore I find myself like trying too hard to put into relationships that are really not even healthy for me. Especially a lot of people from my past, because I'm now running 2 gyms, running a mentorship, all in the same area that I was selling drugs in. Mm-hmm. So it's regular for me to come across people from my past. In the beginning, it was hard. It was very hard for me right away when I got out because I wanted to be like, look at me, I'm doing so good now. And so I'm allowing these people back into my life, which had caused me when I first got out to, not stumble too bad, but to make a couple dumb mistakes because I didn't set healthy boundaries. Mm. So I allowed that to kind of detour it was very quick mistakes and got it all back together. But that's a really good one. Setting healthy boundaries. Not everybody deserves full access to your life.
100%.
So, all right. The next one is, which I feel like is going to be kind of close to the forgiving ourselves one, but cultivating self-compassion.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. I think that it is really consistent with the forgiving yourself one. But the thing about compassion is compassion and empathy to me are very, very similar, right? Because compassion, the root of compassion, I believe, is understanding, right? So I think it has a lot to do with like not being so critical of self, but understanding that, I'm a work in progress. I'm trying to get it right, and when you really are working and trying to get it right, you're working towards trying to get it right. I think that it becomes easier to be compassionate of self.
I think that's good. I think that's perfect for that one because there's not really beating yourself up over mistakes that you haven't. Now, don't get me wrong. There's mistakes that we make that we definitely shouldn't have, and there needs to be like immediate accountability for, right? Mm-hmm. But there's also, we're going to make a lot of mistakes when we're trying to do right. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones that we have to have grace for ourselves. Like it's not doing anything with beating yourself up for a mistake you made. It's just try to make the correct changes and then move forward, and then because beating yourself up is doing the opposite of self-love. You're 100%. Not going to, you're not going to get yourself to a happy, comfortable place by just beating yourself up for your mistakes. Now, these last 2 are my favorite. I think these last 2, this one right here is probably my favorite. I feel like that the value of practicing gratitude can completely change your outlook on life. I know that the best days that I have are when I wake up in the morning and I could spend a little bit of time. I have a gratitude journal that I like to work out of. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it gets redundant to me where I feel like I'm writing the same stuff over and over again. But I think that's okay. I think the point is just, it's a mindset. Being having gratitude towards life, towards people, can completely change the way you look at certain situations, circumstances. Like, oh, I'm grateful for this situation, as opposed to taking stuff for granted, like I've done for a long time. But what's your take on the practicing gratitude?
Yeah, so it's interesting living in the Western world because we have so many things that other parts of the world don't have, right? Yeah. So when you think about something as simple as a clean place to live, a toilet, a shower, right? May not be everything that we want it to be, right? In the Western world, we're always reaching for more, right? without stopping to assess everything that we have, how blessed we really are, right? Like if you have a running toilet,
Yeah.
you're richer than 99% of the world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so thanking God for the seemingly little things that are really big things. You know what I'm saying? And if you have your health, right? Like before we even talk about a toilet or a shower or a sink.
Yeah. Did you wake up? You know, you woke up today.
Having your health is really like the largest form of wealth.
That's good.
Right? Steve Jobs, when he was dying, said that he would give everything up just to have, somebody carry the sickness that's in his body.
Yeah.
Right? Like to be able to rid himself of that sickness. I mean, this dude's a billionaire. To be able to, rid himself of that sickness and have somebody else to be able to pay somebody else to carry that sickness, right? He would do it. He would give all the money up to be able to do that. I think it's important for us to understand what we have. Just take a moment just to be thankful.
Dude, that's crazy. That what you just said, it's like really hit me hard because I feel like we take that for granted. Our health, waking up, being able to breathe, our being, cancer free. You know what I mean? Like it's insane how sometimes I feel like a lot of people don't realize that until it's gone.
Sure.
But there's so many things in this list that we discussed that can keep us from that, like the exercise, the eating healthy, the not drinking alcohol, you know what I mean? Like taking those steps in the.
No, 100%. 100%. Like I'm sitting here right now as we're talking about this and I have no pain in my body. Like I have zero pain in my body right now. Right. I probably should have some pain in my muscles from exercising, right? But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Exercising, doing some weight training a little bit more. But I have zero pain in my body. Do you know how many people are walking around with chronic pain?
Most people.
Every single day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just things like that. Like you don't realize how, I'm not saying you specifically. I'm saying we people don't realize how large of a blessing it is until you don't have it. It's kind of like not having peace, right? You don't realize how valuable peace is until you've had it and then you've lost it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the way that I feel about our health. We don't realize how valuable our health is until our health is compromised. Right? And so for me, every day I just try to take a moment just to say thank you. Thank you, God, for my health. Thank you for the people that you place in my life that genuinely love me. Thank you for an opportunity every day to pursue the things that you placed in my heart. Thank you.
That's so good. That's so good. And it literally, having gratitude will change your outlook on life in a crazy way. Like in a way that it's really, I don't even know how to describe it because it will. It gives you a peace because you can be thankful and content with what you have and then strive for more. But it also brings me back to it makes me feel bad for people who are, I'm too busy to worry about my health right now, or I'm too busy if you don't find time now to whatever the self-care, if you don't find time now for it, you're going to find time for it later on, but it's not going to be how you want to. You know what I mean? Like next thing you know, you're going to find time when you're in the hospital sick because you didn't want to eat healthy and exercise, or, I mean, and I'm not trying to put that on somebody like to scare them, but I mean, you're going to find time now or you're going to find time later. And it's really true. If you're not going to take care of yourself now, what's going to happen down the road? You know, it's like,
if we don't slow down now, our bodies will make us slow down.
That's exactly what I was trying to say. You just said it better. It's really true.
You got to slow down. You got to slow down. Take care of ourselves. Again, me experiencing some anxiety last week really caused me to understand that I need to slow down.
Slow down.
I'm doing a lot of different things, and I have a lot of different obligations, but it's important to just slow down.
It is good. Just slowing down could be a whole podcast episode.
No, 100%.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
It's so true.
You know, and we talked a little bit about this, but and I know I keep going back to the Bible, but it's really how I govern my life, right?
Please do.
There's a verse that says, "Be anxious for nothing, but by prayer and supplication, make your requests known to God." Right? Like, we weren't designed to carry anxiety. We weren't designed to carry stress. You know what I'm saying? For guys specifically, right? sometimes we neglect some of the very things that God placed inside of us in order for us to be able to release stress, like crying.
Yeah. That's
Like
good. Yeah.
crying is scientifically proven to help release stress hormones, but because of toxic masculinity culture, sometimes we neglect to do it because we don't want to be looked at as soft or weak.
Man, that's so
Right.
good.
It's like,
And I'm a
yo,
crier. I'm
yeah.
not scared to admit it.
Yeah. Yo, I
I'm
mean,
a big softy.
yeah. Nah, it's good though. It's good. It's good. And taking a moment, sometimes, like you said, taking a moment sometimes just to sit. And crying doesn't always mean that something is wrong. Sometimes it's crying because things are going well.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it's crying because of gratefulness, gratitude. You know what I'm saying? Like, take a moment, be still with yourself, and exhibit that masculine vulnerability, bro.
That's so good. That masculine vulnerability is just so important. Last one, and it's investing in personal growth. Mm-hmm. It's getting better. Mm-hmm. It's we can't ever really just be content with where we're at. We could be happy with where we're at, and we can, you know what I mean, and we can celebrate those accomplishments. Mm-hmm. But I feel like as men and women, everyone, we need to have something that we're working towards, right? You know, whether it's just a personal level, whether it's a business level. But this is talking about personal growth. So what is your spin on personal growth? What do you do for personal growth?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm big on like courses. Okay. So I'll invest in courses like I think last year I spent maybe $20,000 on courses.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just learning different things. So courses are big for me. I like to talk to people who are smarter than me too. I like putting myself around people who are smarter than me in a particular area. So I put myself around somebody who's smarter than me financially. We'll just have conversations. We'll talk through things. I put somebody around me who's smarter than me when it comes to a lane that I'm in, right? Maybe it's podcasting, right? Or maybe it's social media, or maybe it's speaking. You know what I'm saying? I put myself around someone who is more committed to God than I am.
That's good.
And I'll take the time to learn from them and watch how they live and watch how they move and get advice and insight and inspiration from them. So
I love that.
That's big for me. And I heard a guy named Jeremy Anderson. He's
I took his course. I took his public speaking course.
Okay, that's cool, man. Always grateful, never settle.
Yeah, I like
always
that.
Grateful, never settle. And so that's kind of the way I look at growing, right? I'm always grateful for what I have. I practice that gratitude. But as long as I'm breathing, I believe that there's more that God wants me to do.
100%. And there is. I can see it in you too, so I know that that's factual.
Let's go and get it.
You got a lot. There's definitely. I'm excited to see your growth, man. I can't wait to see what you become in the next couple of years. I can't wait to be like, man, I know that dude. He was on my podcast. Because you've got it. You've got everything it takes to get there because you're genuine. You're a great looking dude. You're well spoken. You just have this heart that just like makes you be like, man, I want to learn more. I want to learn more. You're probably younger than me. You know what I mean? Like, actually, not probably. I can tell by our beards that you're definitely younger than me.
How old are you?
38.
Okay, I just turned 35 February 12th.
Okay, that's not bad then.
That's not bad.
But real quick, I want to touch on these two things of what you just said. Basically, what I was hearing from you also was, in a way, without using the word, was mentorship. A mentorship. That's what I call learning from other people who, and mentorship is something that like I stand on how important it is, especially for our youth nowadays. Especially kids nowadays without dads, don't have dads around. They need to find a man that they can see positive role model and learn how to, use that relationship. But in order to be able to do that, you have to humble yourself. In order, you know what I mean? You have to be able to say, I don't know everything. Because a lot of people get stuck in that, I know everything. But once you're there, you're not learning anymore because you're stuck in that everything process. And I see that a lot, especially with grown men who aren't willing to sit back and say, hey, can you help me? And it could be mentally, it could be in any coursework, it could be anything. But we need to I have a lot of mentors. I didn't before, but I do now because I realized that that's the best way for me to learn. And, they say you take the top 5 people that you surround yourself with, and it's going to be, living conditions, how much money they make, all those, and it's going to be the sum of those top 5 people. So think about that. You know what I mean? Think about that. If you're out there listening to the show, think about who you spend most of your time with, who you associate with the most. Are those people that you want to be like, that you want your life to turn out like? And that's investing, to me, finding a mentor is investing in personal growth. And that's something, you know, I'm really big in is mentorship.
Yeah, mentorship is important. So I believe in the concept of both mentorship and friendtorship.
Okay, let's
Right.
tell me about this.
So mentorship is we all know what mentorship is. It's finding somebody who's better than you in a certain area or has more wisdom than you in a certain area, and you submit yourself to their guidance. Right. Friendtorship is I have something to teach you, and you have something to teach me.
Mixed with accountability.
Yeah, mixed with accountability.
Yeah,
right?
that's
so
awesome.
we're gonna walk with each other, right? I may be better in the area than you are, and I can teach you what I know.
Yeah.
You may be better in the area than I am, and you can teach me what I know. And from that comes dual growth,
That's really good.
right? It's not just one person pulling from another person. It's two people walking together and learning from each other in their respective areas.
I feel like that's what friendship should be based off of,
100%.
right? Like if you're walking with somebody and there's nothing, you know, don't get me wrong. You should always reach back and help people. I'm not saying that like cut people off if they're not on a level of teaching you anything, but be careful where you're spending your time and what you know what I mean? And what both people are getting out of it, right? Because some people are takers, and if you're not careful, they'll just leech off you. So you got to make sure that, man, that was awesome. That was Nate. You're so good with all this information. I have a question that I ask everybody on the show that's very important to me, this question, because I keep a compilation of all these, and these are things that I really like our boys from our mentorship program and different people to hear. And what advice do you have for, you know, whatever, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old Nate? Let's say if you could go back and tell yourself at 16 years old, and it could be a couple things, but what pieces of information would you wish you knew when you were 16 years old?
Yeah, 100%. So that's really simple for me. I would tell my 16-year-old self to focus less on acquiring and to focus more on becoming. Right? It's not about what we accumulate. It's about who we become in the process of accumulation. Right? It's not about the goals that we reach. It's about the person that we become as we reach those goals. That really is the gift. The goal, the acquisition is really just the outcome of who we become, right? So I would tell myself to focus on your character, focus on your discipline, focus on being a man of your word, focus on being a man of integrity, focus on being a lifelong learner, you know, focus on being faithful where you are and whatever you're doing, focus on being consistent, but focus more on who you become than what you acquire.
That's so good, because the acquisitions are going to come. If you focus on all those things that you just said, you're going to be fruitful. You know what I mean? Like your life will turn out the way you want it to turn out if you're following that. I mean, it's just like discipline wrapped up in a, you know, and then with integrity and all that. I think that's a great answer. I think that's probably one of the best ones I've got, because it's so much deeper than just, you know, find a mentor, or because those are things that most 16-year-old kids aren't thinking about yet. They're thinking about, man, I'm trying to get these new Jordans. I'm trying to get this car. I'm trying to get, you know, it's acquisitions. Just like you said, acquiring things. It's not, we're not building our character at 16. I mean, we are, but we don't realize it. So it's like intentional character building at 16. It's awesome.
Yeah, man. If we focus on if we focus on being excellent in the journey, the outcome is inevitable, right? Like if we focus on being excellent on the way, then there's no chance that we miss the outcome.
That's so good.
Like there's zero chance that we miss the outcome. You know, Kobe Bryant, rest in peace to the late great Kobe Bean Bryant.
Man.
But he said,
Lower Marion.
yeah.
Philly boy.
Another Philly guy. He said he would play ball and he would come back like every summer and he would be leaps and bounds like ahead of his competition. And people began to ask him like, yo, like, how are you becoming so good so quickly? And he said, man, I just focus every day on becoming better. Like I'm locked in on becoming better. It's not that I'm trying to be better than you. I just want to be better than I was yesterday.
That's so good.
And I feel like, yo, we focus on becoming better today than we were yesterday. We focus on getting one step closer to the goal today than we were yesterday. Then we'll look up in a year and we'll be leaps and bounds better than we were last year. and you look up in 5 years and you don't even recognize who you are, and you look up in 10 years and you realize that you're really living the life that you've wanted to live. And I'm gonna tell you this, man, we can lock in for 6 months and look up
and see major change
and be a different person.
Yeah.
Like if we really focus on becoming a better man every single day, right? And really like auditing our thoughts and auditing our time and auditing where we give our attention, and removing distractions. Like if we really do that, look up in 6 months and we'll be different men.
That's so good, man. That's great advice. Real quick before we hop off, for one, I want to thank you again for your time, bro. Like I learned, I've got a whole paper of notes over here that I've learned from you talking. Like this is what I get out of your content on social media. Like
Appreciate that.
And I follow a lot of people, but this is literally what I get out of your content. So don't ever stop doing what you're doing, because you're going to change the world with that stuff.
I appreciate
the way you talk about Patrick Bet David or whatever. Like they going to be like, oh, you heard about Nate Cottman? Like it's coming. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that.
Can you tell all of our listeners, even though they probably going to leave my podcast and come listen to yours, but can you tell my listeners how they can find you and your new podcast and YouTube and just everything so they know?
Yeah, for sure. So on Instagram, it is From Nate with Love. And it's so funny because some people think that my name is Nate with Love, but it's really my messages come from Nate. But everything that I say is seasoned with love. Yeah. So it's From Nate with Love on Instagram. And we just recorded our first podcast episode. And so we'll be launching that on YouTube once we get to 1,000 subscribers. So if you go to YouTube, search Rooting for You with Nate Cottman. Rooting for You with Nate Cottman, and it'll pop up, and you can subscribe. And once we get to 1,000, man, we're gonna drop that episode, and I promise you, it's an episode that people don't want to miss.
I've already heard great things.
It's extremely transparent.
I kind of have a back end info.
Right.
No, I haven't seen it yet. He wouldn't show it to me, but he said it was amazing, and everything from the setting to how you do things, bro. Like you're so thought out. You're not winging this. You know what I mean? Like the setting is perfect, man. I'm really proud of you, Doug.
Thank you.
Really proud of you.
Thank you so much.
That's pretty much it, you guys. I also want to give a shout out. They don't pay me or nothing for this, but I just really believe in the brand that I'm wearing. The father figure. The father figures are essential. The brand is legit. The vision is legit. The men behind it are legit. So if you guys are looking for any sort of cool merch and stuff, look up Father Figure Apparel on Instagram. And I guess that's it, man. I love you guys. Remember that you're loved and you're forgiven, and there's nothing you can do about it. Catch y'all next week.